Right, this is just a summary of what we did in class today and how we are using the area model to multiply fractions when they are mixed numbers. And before we start, just a quick reminder to always read the top of the note catcher and think about what it's telling us. So when we look at the top of the note catcher here, it says remember that it is not necessary to find a common denominator when you multiply. Because we just finished addition, and that's a question that comes up a lot. And before we did the note catcher, we did a lot of visual models of multiplication, and we focused in primarily on just reviewing simple fraction multiplication. And simple fraction multiplication is what we see here on the left, where you don't have mixed numbers. And as you look through the note catcher, it's just showing you that you can just multiply 2 times 5 and you get 10. And you can multiply 5 times 8 and you get 40. And when you simplify that, you get a fourth. So when you look at a note catcher and it's all finished, don't forget that you want to try to follow it through and make sure you understand what the reading is. So then we practiced this problem here on the right, and this was a model of the multiplication problem 3 times 6 3/4. And when we model that, we're going to draw an area model, which you see here. And on the left side, we have the 3 right here. And on the right side, we broke the 6 3/4 into the whole and fraction part. So then we go back to the same area model that we've been using all year. 3 times 6 is 18. And then we do simple multiplication with 3 times 3/4. And we talked about how we can always think of a whole number as a fraction. So what actually goes in this box is 3 over 1 times 3/4, or the product of that. And when we do that simple multiplication there, we would multiply the 4s times the 1, and we will multiply the 3 times the 3. And so up in here, we get 9/4, and the mixed number for that is 2 1/4. So the final answer would just be 20 1/4. And if you're not sure where that came from, we added the parts. So we added the 18 plus the 2 1/4. The next problem we did below, before we started, we corrected a typo that you will see on your sheet. And so instead of this being 12 3/4, it really should have read 12 1/2. Change the color on that. So it should be 12 1/2. So if you didn't make that change in class, we did do that, and it would be helpful for you to do that. Then as I scroll down, you can see that 12 1/2 is written as the whole and the fraction part, and the 8 3/4 is written vertically. So we're going to repeat that process. So we want to make sure that we also use as much mental math as we can in the area model. So an example would be, hopefully a lot of you can do 8 times 12 with mental math, and you know that it's 96. And the other thing we talked about is that half of what goes in, say, this next box, we talked about how to figure out what goes where. So if I pick up a highlighter, when I multiply 8 times a half, I'm going to put that answer right there. And I know that half of 8 is 4. So I could just write the 4 there because I know half of 8 is 4. And if you are struggling with that, then you can change that 8 into a simple fraction and do what is a little bit the longer route. 8 times 1 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. So this is 8 over 2, which is 4. And that's where the 4 comes from. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at multiplying 3/4. So let's get rid of that. It's a little hard to look at that way. And go back to this fancy little highlighter tool. And now we're going to multiply the 3/4 times the 12 and put the answer to 3/4 times 12 there. So when I do that, again, I could think of this as 3/4 times 12 over 1, which is 36 over 4, because I multiplied the denominators and the numerators, and that's equal to 9. But some of you may also be able to do that in your head, because 1/4 of 12 is 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. Not everybody's there yet. And then this last bit, if we take out the highlighter and focus in on the last two numbers, so now I'm going to multiply 3/4 times 1/2 and put the product there. So 3/4 times 1/2, that's going to be 3/8. So I put 3/8 here. And then my final answer, I add all the parts. So let's take that highlighter out and erase that. And then the final answer should just be adding all of the parts. So we're going to add the 96 and the 4 and the 9 and the 3/8, and we did that in class. We got 109 and 3/8. And then at the end of class, we did the practice your skill problem. So again, in looking at the problem here, when we take a look at the problem, we have the whole number 4 and the fraction piece split up. And then we also have the 5 from this term, the whole number 5, and the fraction piece split up. So we split all that up, and we just continue on with the process. We use the area model. So the problem started for you, and you can see that 4 times 5 is 20. And then in the second box, it did 4 times 2/3. So our job was to do 5 times 3/4, because that's the next, whoops, sorry about that. The next piece goes right in there. So we can think of the 5 as 5 over 1, and the 3/4 as 3/4. And when we multiply the numerators, we get 15. And when we multiply the denominators, we get 4. 4 goes into 15 3 times. And 3 times 4 is 12, so the remainder is 3. So we have 3 3/4. And then for this box here, we have 3/4 times 2/3. So this is 6, and that's 12. So this is 6/12, which is also equal to 1/2. So you've done all the hard work there. The next step is to add them all together. So we're going to add all those pieces together, and we could do some mental math addition, like we could add the wholes, 20 and 2 and 3. That adds up to 25. So we could say 25 and 2/3 plus, so we have to add in the 2/3 and the 3/4 and the 1/2, all the fraction parts. And in order to add fractions, you do need a common denominator. So we're going to change all of these to 12s. Because 3, 4, and 2 all go into 12. So I'm going to multiply this by 4, multiply these by 3, multiply these by 6, and so I have 25 and 8 12s plus 9 12s plus 6 12s. And when I add that up, 8 and 9 make 17, and 6 more make 23. So this is 25 and 23 12s, which is the same. 12 goes into 23 once, so 26, and the remainder is 11, and 11 12s. That's our final answer. And your job tonight is to do the same thing on the next page. So wherever you see the area model, like on problem 4, you need to set up and draw yourself an area model. So we could have 5, 6 here, and then here we would have 7 and 3/4. And that's how you start the problem. And then you work it out. And then you'll need an area model on 5 and also on 6. But you just do simple multiplication when you don't have mixed numbers. So 5 times 3, that's going to give you 15. 8 times 4, that gives you 32. That's your final answer. Always check to see if it reduces, and in that case, it doesn't. All right, card on that, and bring it back tomorrow.